those that are aspiring in leadership to take that example, then we would create a better community, right? So what I've heard you say is that you didn't create the 3 E's and being accountable as a leader to pat your chest, right?
Yeah.
Or for this award or for this recognition. You said, no, this young man is a person. This is my job. I'm going to create a relationship. I see him as a human, not as a person who did something bad. Boom, you lost um, connection, which was expected, right? And years later, apparently he turned his life around at some point,
Yes.
and you're back in the city doing your job, and he was the person that extended that olive branch back to you. And that's powerful because when we're, oftentimes if people are listening to this show or season 2 or recent episodes, what I'm always talking about is leadership and that impact, right? And leadership should not be about numbers because numbers are refutable, right? But when you're talking about the lived experience, that qualitative data, that qualitative experience, that's what's irrefutable. And that's what you just described. So thank you for sharing that because it really drives home not just your intent, but the impact of that system you created. And whether it worked then, it works now, and it works somewhere else, that's what leaders need to create, those systems, right? And the systems that do have measurable outcomes, as you talked about earlier, and as we know, when we're talking about the impact. And so, yeah, that's phenomenal, and I appreciate that. Let's move on to collaboration and partnership. So, I'm excited to hear this because I obviously when people are, and that's why I love to interview others because you learn and you teach, right? So we know about where you are currently, being a hierarchy president of union XYZ, but people don't realize you come from the beat, right? Like
Yeah.
you just described, like you just didn't jump in to these leadership roles just because the green looked great in the background, right? Or your
Yeah.
glasses like shining, right? So understand that you're like this has been your purpose in life, right? Safety, public service, that kind of thing. So how important are partnerships, right? And I can imagine how many partnerships you've created, you leaned on, you evaluated, may not have worked. But how important are partnerships and collaboration in advancing community impact, especially in your field and background? And what have you learned about working across sectors?
Yeah. So partnerships are important because we establish a framework of how we're going to accomplish the same goal and a task. And so, um, I'll take in my role now as the statewide president for the police union. I have to work with both Democrats and Republicans to get bills passed that has impact on our membership, or in some cases for the greater good that has impact on our community. So I'll talk about like the historic police reform when the old Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights back in 2021 that during that legislative session was repealed and replaced. We replaced it with the Police Accountability Act, and the Maryland Police Accountability Act still allowed our police officers to have due process. And so having due process is one of the core fundamental goals for people that are in labor and in life, such as people that are going through whatever trial and tribulations. You want to be able to have due process, whether it's on your job, whether it's in a criminal situation, whether it's a situation at home. You want to be able to say, I got due process. And so those collaborations go back to us making sure that we are trying to achieve the same goal. And my goal was to make sure that our officers had due process. But some of the elected officials, their goal was to repeal what they thought was a unfair advantage to a particular group of people in a profession. Um, And so we had to use collaborations to understand each other, and what each other's goals were, and how do we make this agreement in the best interest of both sides. And so I always go back to collaboration and partnership is key to making sure that everybody is successful, because one, you have representation at the table, and you have everyone's best interests uh, is the driving force of making sure that partnerships are collaborations and partnerships are successful, is because of the interest that everyone has in that particular situation. So I think that it's important to always keep in mind, uh, this is not personal, this is business, and we are trying to achieve a goal, and so I cannot personally hold someone liable for what they may feel, um, and just still try to work with everyone that I come in contact with, that may be a part of a solution that we are all trying to get to. So I agree that partnerships and collaborations are very, very important.
Yes, and I appreciate that. And of course, I have to ask this question. If things go right the way we hope, what type of partnerships and collaborations are needed where we are currently, given the state of the safety or the lack of safety or the crime or the youth crime or whatever that's in our areas? What type of precedents would you like to begin um, if you take on this new role?
Yeah, so I've said publicly that if I'm selected for the new role, how I wanted to be a partner with the Baltimore County Police Department. Um, you know, as a partner, I want to be able to help them deliver some of the services that we're both responsible for. Um, and so I think that it's important that, which I know the leadership team there has the same mindset um, of wanting to do what's best for community. And so, how do we get there? The best way to get there is to get there together with all people in the boat rowing in the same direction. And so, I look forward to an opportunity that we will all be able to sit down and lay out the groundwork on how that partnership looks. But I think that we are poised to have a different um, collaboration that we've never seen before. And I think back to when I first took over in my role with the Maryland State Fraternal Order of Police, and how the job was done. And um, so, just doing some out of the box thinking, I started to be more vocal and um, more accessible to different people, and that started to change the perception of what our organization stood for, because people started to associate the organization with the leader, and they said, "Oh, the leader, that guy, that young guy, he's accessible. You can call him, you can talk to him. He's reasonable." And so once we start changing the perception of people, we were able to start getting better results. And so I look forward to that. If I'm blessed to take on this new role of just being going back to my tenets, visible, accessible, and accountable, and developing those strong relationships.
And I do have to ask one question because you mentioned working, part of that is working with our BC Baltimore County Police Department. For those who may not be familiar or understand, what's the difference between a sheriff department and a police department?
So when you start from the top, like sheriffs are elected, and police chiefs are appointed by the county executives or the mayors of that local jurisdiction. And the main goals of this: police respond to 911 calls. Sheriff's deputies are certified police officers, but they are